In a secret CIA facility, a switch is flipped in a woman's mind, and Candy is gone. In her place is a programmed killer named Arlene. This was the alleged secret life of one of America's most famous pin-up models. But was she a Manchurian Candidate, a victim of a sophisticated disinformation campaign, or something else entirely? To understand the madness that would consume her life, you must first understand the icon she was. Born Jessica Wilcox, the world would come to know her as Candy Jones. Standing over 6 feet tall, she was a titan of the modeling industry. She was the all-American girl, a patriot who toured with the USO during World War II, lifting the morale of troops in the South Pacific. Her face was ubiquitous, a symbol of American optimism. In a single month in 1943, she appeared on the covers of 11 different magazines. She ran a successful modeling school, wrote books on beauty, and embodied the post-war ideal of glamour and wholesome patriotism. It was this unimpeachable public image that made her the perfect, invisible weapon. The story she would later tell began in 1960. Her modeling school was struggling, and Jones was worried about paying for her son's private education. An old acquaintance, a retired Army general, asked if she would allow her office to be used as a mail drop for the government. Out of a sense of patriotic duty, she agreed. This was the door opening, just a crack. Soon after, she was asked to deliver a letter during a business trip. This simple request was the beginning of her alleged descent. The man she delivered it to was a doctor, a specialist in hypnosis. His name, she claimed, was Dr. Gilbert Jensen. The reality was far more disturbing. Jensen was allegedly a front for a CIA psychologist involved in one of history's most terrifying covert programs. Under the guise of medical treatment for anxiety and fatigue, the conditioning began. Through hypnosis, a new personality was allegedly cultivated from a childhood imaginary friend she called Arlene. Candy was open and warm. Arlene was cold, ruthless, and efficient. The goal was simple and sadistic, to create a conscious mind that would have no memory of the actions performed by the subconscious one. Arlene would be the perfect courier. Candy would remember nothing. This led to the core horror of her story, the Arlene missions. The details, extracted years later under hypnosis, painted a grim picture of a decade spent as a pawn in the Cold War. Arlene was sent on missions to Taiwan and across Southeast Asia. She delivered messages, transported microfilm, and served as an unwitting intelligence asset. The training was brutal and designed to test the limits of the programming. Under hypnosis, Jones recounted being subjected to horrific torture simulations to ensure the Arlene persona would not break. She described being locked in cages, subjected to sensory deprivation, and enduring unimaginable pain, all while her conscious mind, the mind of Candy Jones, remained oblivious. The Candy persona was a perfect cover, allowing Arlene to move through the world without suspicion. Her business trips provided the perfect pretext for government work, with colleagues later noting puzzling absences where little actual business seemed to be conducted. The two lives of Candy Jones might have remained separate forever, were it not for her second marriage in 1972 to Long John Nebel, a famous late-night radio host, known for his interest in the paranormal and conspiracy. Nebel quickly noticed disturbing shifts in his wife's personality. She suffered from violent mood swings and severe insomnia. At times, her voice would change, becoming harsh and aggressive, a personality he called the Voice. Hoping to cure her insomnia, Nebel, an experienced amateur hypnotist, suggested a session. Jones insisted she couldn't be hypnotized, but she quickly fell into a deep trance. What emerged from these sessions, which Nebel recorded over hundreds of hours, was the alternate personality of Arlene. For the first time, Arlene spoke. She detailed her recruitment, her training, and her missions. She spoke of Dr. Jensen and the CIA. The tapes were a terrifying chronicle of a splintered mind. For Nebel, it was the confirmation of his darkest fears. His wife was not just troubled, she was a victim of something vast and sinister. This was the human element, the personal horror of a husband uncovering a decade of trauma hidden inside the woman he loved. The story exploded into the public consciousness in 1976 with the publication of the book, The Control of Candy Jones. Based on Nebel's extensive hypnosis tapes, the book laid out the entire bizarre and terrifying saga. It sent shockwaves through a public already rattled by revelations of government overreach. The book became a cult classic, detailing how one of America's most beloved figures was allegedly used as a human guinea pig. The book contained corroborating evidence, a passport discovered by Jones in the name of Arlene Grant, featuring a photo of Candy in a dark wig and makeup, which she had no memory of taking. The story was so sensational that 20th Century Fox purchased the film rights, though a movie was never produced. To many, the story seemed too fantastical to be true, but then came the crucial nuance, the horrifying context that made Candy's story not just possible, but plausible. In the mid-1970s, congressional investigations, led by the Church Committee, began to unearth the real-life activities of the CIA. They exposed a top-secret illegal program called MKUltra. For 2 decades, from 1953 to 1973, the CIA engaged in a widespread campaign of human experimentation. The program's goals were chillingly similar to what Candy described: to develop techniques for mind control, interrogation, and psychological torture. The CIA used hypnosis, electroshocks, sensory deprivation, and high doses of drugs like LSD on unwitting subjects, including American citizens. They operated out of universities, hospitals, and prisons, using front organizations to conduct their research. The documented methods of MKUltra were a mirror of the horrors Candy Jones described. Suddenly, her story was not just the rambling of a troubled woman, it was a potential first-hand account of a documented government conspiracy. Experts in the field lent credibility. George Estabrooks, a psychologist who worked with military intelligence, had openly written about creating hypnotic couriers for wartime intelligence. He boasted of his ability to create dual personalities for espionage. However, there was also a powerful counter-narrative. The CIA officially denied any knowledge of Candy Jones. No hard evidence beyond the tapes and her own testimony ever directly linked her to MKUltra. Skeptics pointed to false memory syndrome, suggesting the suggestible Candy, under hypnosis by her husband, could have confabulated the entire story. Researchers who scoured declassified MKUltra documents could find no mention of her name, though it's acknowledged that CIA Director Richard Helms illegally ordered the vast majority of MKUltra records destroyed in 1973. In the end, the absolute truth of Candy Jones remains buried, a casualty of Cold War paranoia and official secrecy. Her story exists at the terrifying intersection of proven fact and unprovable claims. We know MKUltra was real. We know the CIA did unspeakable things in the name of national security. Whether Candy Jones was one of their victims or a victim of her own troubled mind is a question that may never be answered. Her legacy is one of profound uncertainty, a chilling reminder that in the shadow war of intelligence, the human mind was considered just another battlefield, and the casualties are stories like hers, forever lost between a nightmare and a conspiracy.